Hey folks, first of all, I was not intending to take as long of a break as I have. So if you've been here from episode 5 or earlier, thank you so much for sticking with the show. The good news is, despite not putting out any episodes in November, it has been our biggest month of growth. So thank you for any part you played in that. And keep reaching out. Really loving hearing from you. The other good news is that this week is the start of a 2-part episode. So there will be an episode today and next week. Enjoy.
Are you married?
I'm not married.
And you live where?
I live in Crown Heights in Brooklyn.
Oh, is that nice?
Yeah, that's nice.
Okay.
That's Nancy talking to me at the nursing home that she lives at. Nancy is 91, so she's lived 3 times the amount of life that I have. Because of this, I was a little nervous that we wouldn't have much to talk about, but as you can tell, we hit it off right from the jump.
Both my granddaughters live in Brooklyn.
Really?
What's the one that's right across from the city?
There's Williamsburg.
No.
And then there's Brooklyn Heights.
No.
Dumbo.
No.
Right across from the city. Downtown Brooklyn.
No. I can't remember.
Cobble Hill.
But that's where my...
Fort Greene?
No.
Okay. On the last episode, we talked about the kind of diapers that babies and toddlers wear, which are pretty much the only kind that I think about when I hear that word, diapers. But there happen to be multiple, less visible populations that wear them. Today, we're gonna start to explore those. So I'm working on this podcast, and a lot of it is talking to people about going to the bathroom.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Why?
Why?
Yeah. Why did you pick that interesting subject?
I think
there must be more to it than I think. No. Then I realize everybody does it.
Right. Do you mind me asking if you wear briefs?
Pampers, you mean?
Yeah.
Only since I've been here.
I want to point out something that just happened, because it's going to be kind of a theme of the episode. I asked Nancy if she wears briefs, but Nancy corrected me with a term she's more familiar with. For now, just keep that in the back of your head. Have you had to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night more as you've gotten older?
Oh, my God. It drives me crazy.
Uh-huh.
I go 10, 12, 2, 4, 7 at night. So the Pampers do help you a little, you know. I had to give in to myself to wear the Pampers.
Can you talk a little bit about that? What do you mean by giving in to yourself?
Yeah, well, I thought I was reverting to an infant again, putting on Pampers.
How did you get over that mental hurdle?
Because I was getting up too many times to go to the bathroom. And I said, I've got to do something about this. Yeah. It's up to you, Nancy, to make it work.
Right. The populations that wear diapers that are not babies or toddlers, they face a stigma. It's unclear exactly where it's coming from, but like Nancy described, even if you wear them for medical purposes, it can, at least at first, feel infantilizing.
I can't get to the bathroom sometimes. That's my number one fight in the world.
Holding in your pee is your number one fight in the world?
Uh-huh.
Do you usually win that battle?
No.
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 That's why it's your most difficult fight.
Correct. And that's why Pampers do help. 2 nights ago, I was trying to get some things that I needed or wanted for bed. It's a towel and a pamper and things like that. Well, I couldn't. I asked 8 different people.
You mean they refused?
No, I couldn't get one to answer. You push a call bell.
Do you think that's because they're overworked?
No.
No.
And yes, they're overworked for the moment. And then they come by and say, oh, I'm so tired. Excuse me, I'm 91 years old now. Give me a break. You don't even know what tired is. You're 26 to 34, that age group. They can't be that tired.
As a 26 to 34-year-old myself, maybe I needed to be put in my place. After last episode, I thought I learned a thing or two about diapers. Seems like I don't know the half of it. It's time to pull up my grown-up pants and learn about the adults who depend on the garments that we traditionally see as for kids. Welcome back to Someone's in Here, a podcast where we tell stories about going to the bathroom. I'm your host, Ben Castleman. Thank you so much for tuning in. So you feel like you've lost a lot of your independence here?
Define independence.
Do you feel like you are free to do what...
I'm free to do nothing.
Okay. So in that...
Yes.
In that definition, you have lost.
Yes.
Nancy has a lot to say about the nursing home that she found herself at. I had a lot of questions, but most of this was pretty new to me. This nursing home is on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. It's actually only 2 blocks south of where I grew up, but I didn't even know it existed before working on this episode. From the outside, it looks like any other apartment building, but from the inside, it looks a lot like a hospital to me. Many of the rooms I saw had at least 2 residents in them, most of them living there as a Medicaid benefit. What does it feel like being dependent on nurses to take a shower?
Aggravating.
How often are you able to get in the shower?
Well, I didn't make it today. Maybe I get 2.5 showers a week.
Does that affect your sense of personal hygiene?
No. I've given up that, no.
You've given up your sense of personal hygiene?
Yeah, well, and I can go in the bathroom and soap sponge. That's not what I want. I want to stand in the shower. I have bad knees and bad arthritis, and I do not stand stable. So I was a little concerned.
Right. Without an aid, you were concerned that you might fall.
And the last thing in America I want to do is fall.
And you say in America because we have very expensive healthcare?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, no, why in America?
Did I say in America? What did I say?
You said the last thing I want to do in America is fall.
Well, yeah, I guess it has to do with insurance. Mm-hmm. And 3 months ago, I got a note that this is the last day of your physical therapy. I said, why? Well, nobody could explain to me why, which I object to.
Nancy has some issues with the specific home that she's in, but also the larger system. A system that you may or may not find unique to living in America. Luckily for her, it didn't seem like Nancy needed as much help as other residents, specifically going to the toilet. But whenever you're receiving care around the bathroom, it's personal, and it means something to you, how that care is provided. Do you think the nurses here think of taking care of you as an act of care or a task?
A task.
A task of their job. Mm-hmm. And how does that impact the way that you receive it?
Well, a very negative way. But it doesn't impact me because I don't need that much of it. I think if I needed more, like my roommate, I'd get more, so to speak. But because I don't need it, I can do 99% of everything myself. I think that I don't get any attention.
Well, to be fair, one of Nancy's caregivers was giving her some attention. I'm referring to my friend Jonas, who heard I was doing an adult diapers episode and wanted to introduce me to Nancy. I've known Jonas since high school. In fact, he grew up only 2 blocks away from the nursing home too. Just 2 blocks in the opposite direction.
I'm Jonas. I work as a concierge now at a nursing home in Brooklyn, New York. And I like the Knicks, and I hang out with old people a lot.
Sadly for Nancy, Jonas had moved on to another nursing home by the time I interviewed him. While day to day, Jonas and Nancy were further apart physically, they both very much had their mind on how to make the nursing home experience more dignified for its residents. Jonas was not just the person who introduced me to Nancy, but also to the concept that in a nursing home, depending on who you talk to, you might call an adult diaper a brief.
We use the word brief in the field for what is called dignity purposes. However, if you say the word brief to someone wearing a brief, they often will look at you not knowing what you're talking about, and then you'll be like a diaper. There is a tendency, because a lot of the same materials and treatments and services are given to folks at late stages of their lives as those given to folks at very early stages in their lives. For instance, a bib is something that's used in a skilled nursing facility as well, but we like to call them coveralls. The idea is avoiding terminology that leans like baby. So like a diaper is what a baby wears, but a brief is what an older adult wears.
Have you ever talked to a resident about the fact that they're using a lot of the same stuff that they use, or that is typically used by very young kids and babies?
Honestly, not so much. There's only a handful of times where you have the opportunity to address the reality of a situation with a resident, like really like understand what the fuck this experience is like for them. That tends not to happen while they're getting changed. And I think part of that is almost because what words can you add that aren't already spoken by the removal of a soiled brief?
Jonas knows now that a soiled brief is worth 1,000 words. But it took a real awakening to even picture himself in this industry. Just a few years back, he was on a completely different career path, still focused on easing people's pain, in a sense, but in a notably different way. All right, I want to take it back a little bit. So you and I have reconnected in the past few years, but in the years we weren't in touch as much, I was under the impression you were developing a brand of alcohol that let you stay out later and feel less hungover. Is that correct?
Yeah. It was, the company name was Jora Beverage Company. The beverage final name was called Nonsense.
To someone that doesn't know you, that might seem like a radically different career pursuit. Does that feel like a lifetime ago?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. How do you get from Nonsense to working at skilled nursing facilities?
I feel like psychedelics have started to become like pretty cliche. But I was doing psychedelics at the same exact time that my grandma was in this nursing home. So I'm like, all right, these elders that I'm seeing in this nursing home, they're close to the end, but they are suffering because that environment sucks and they're eating really shitty food and they don't have community. I knew with this sort of certainty that like there was this fluidity between everything, everyone, infinite, Jonas. So I was like, well, I am all these beings that are suffering. And then I fucking left the world of hospitality, beverages, became a certified nurse's aide on a COVID positive unit in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I've been I've been doing it ever since.
How did people react to your decision to switch careers?
There was a big mix. My grandma was really worried for me. And then I remember I came back for a weekend to visit, and I had already been certified at that point, and my grandma needed to use the bathroom. And so she was waiting for a CNA to come to her room, and I was like, Grandma, like, just let me do it. And I helped my grandma, like, sat her on the toilet, helped wipe her afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know at that point, like, how much she was understood and knew where I was most of the time. But she said, like, I get what you're doing. So that was really cool. That was a very cool moment for me.
How much of a CNA's job is helping residents out in the bathroom?
Okay. I feel like now we're getting to the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's so dependent on the ratio of residents that each CNA has. Because as you can imagine, the more time you're spending with one resident helping them toilet, the less time you're spending connecting on a psychosocial level, connecting with other residents, making food with people, laughing, like watching sports. It's impossible to give good care if you have too many residents. It's just impossible. If you have 10 of them, you're spending your entire shift as a continence manager.
Continence is a term for the ability to control your bladder or bowel movements. So on the flip side, incontinence is when you struggle controlling when you go to the bathroom. Both nurses and residents would really benefit if this wasn't the sole concern of a nurse's entire shift, but a lot of the time, that's the reality. So it seems like you would get used to continence management pretty quickly, but do you remember your first time cleaning up someone's poop?
I'll never forget it. It was wild, Ben. I'm wearing a turtleneck underneath a blue sterile gown because it was COVID times. You have to gown up for everyone's room. I'm sweating, helping this woman turn a gentleman. Imagine someone's laying flat. You turn them, say, onto their left side so that you can access their anus. And while he's turned facing her, he starts to poop. And the brief isn't on anymore because we're changing it. And this is my first time ever. I catch what was a log. It was such a poop. And I caught it in my gloved hands. And then the one was laughing at me. And she, but like laughing in a way where like, this is part of the job. Like not like that abnormal. Yeah. And she opened the door to the bathroom for me. And I put the poop into the toilet. And then I removed my gloves. I washed my hands. And that was the first time.
Do you remember what you were feeling at that time?
Pride. Absolutely.
Interesting. You were proud that you had switched careers or successfully done a diaper change?
Imagine a Major League Baseball player hitting your first home run where you're like, holy shit. Like you're rounding the bases. People are applauding and you're like, I just hit a home run. Mm. And for me, it was a tangible point of recognition looking that like I caught a poop and I helped change a man. It was my home run.
Congrats. I hope you kept that ball. So your attitude early on was not even like that reflective of the fact that you're involved in like a very intimate occurrence for someone else, but it was like I did my job well.
Just for that very first one, yeah. Homer one was pride, and then the next, Aaron Judge's worth of home runs are learning home runs. And sometimes, by the way, they're not home runs. They're double plays. Like sometimes I fucked up.
So Jonas gets to changing many diapers, sometimes with pride and sometimes kind of stumbling along. Obviously, he's also learning and doing everything else that a certified nurse's aide does. One of these responsibilities is something that Jonas explained to me called charting, where you keep track both of everything a resident eats during your shift and, to put it politely, what they discard. Effectively, you are, for residents that need help going to the bathroom, you're recording details about every time they toilet, correct?
Not every time, but like almost a summary of their continence during your shift.
Do they know that you're doing that?
You know, I've never really thought about that. Like, it's really a good question.
Is the fact that these residents have their continence charted every day and no one ever talks to them about that, is that a symptom of the dehumanization that there is in the industry?
I mean, maybe? Like, do you think so?
I'm just like, if you take a step back and you're intellectually thinking about, like, what if I told you, Jonas, that there was someone who was charting you going to the bathroom every day and you didn't explicitly know about it? That sounds strange, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for breaking that down. That does sound strange. And would be a kind of reinforcement of like feeling like a patient.
As opposed to someone living in a community.
Yeah.
Got it. If you like reach the destination of your quest where residents are at a home that they're happy to be at, would ideally part of that be you talking to them more about like the deeper stuff?
100%. I think that in an ideal world of aging, you're not like masking the fact that someone is having their brief changed. You're maybe not even using the word brief. You're like, yeah, it's a diaper. Instead of masking everything with this like very strange veil so that we all can try to like conveniently avoid the fact that we're all gonna age and we're all gonna die. Let's lift the veil. Let's enjoy the truth. Let's share it together the same way that I think you're trying to do with bathroom. Like let's open the fucking urinal cover. Let's hang out. Let's look at each other in the eyes while we're peeing.
Absolutely. Yeah, pick the middle stall. Keeping it real for a second. One of the reasons I like the title Someone's in Here is because it emphasizes that while you're annoyed waiting to get into the bathroom, there's a real live human on the other side. When we're going to the bathroom ourselves, we know that that's a human act. But if we're changing hundreds, thousands of diapers, it's hard to keep that from becoming tedious. I wondered how someone in Jonas's position reckoned with that. Do you, Jonas, think of helping someone in the bathroom as care or as a task?
It's such a tough question for me right now, and is really telling for like where I am and how hard this experience has been for me in many ways. It's care, it's love. Like I know that intellectually, and I try so hard to stay grounded in that, to have that as my North Star. But like, man, I mean, I would be lying if I said that the numbness hasn't encroached on me a bit as well. I've just had so many fucking residents at this point. I've met so many people that like leave my life. It's just hard not to cope with that by turning it into work. And as we say that, like the intercom at my facility goes off, paging for someone. And it is work. And I go home.
In order to put on a fresh diaper, you have to take off a messy one. For Nancy, to maintain some sense of independence, she had to get over her feelings of infantilization. For Jonas, in order to bond with the residents in the ways he wants, he has to disassociate from the unpleasant tasks that his job demands. Maybe if we had better diapers, or better ideas about diapers, this space wouldn't be so messy. So perhaps it's time to talk to someone whose job revolves around creating new ideas about diapers.
My name is Laurie Borowski, and I am the owner and entrepreneur behind In Control Diapers and the innovations here.
Move over, Guy Raz. Someone's in here has hit the big time. We've got the CEO of In Control Diapers on the pod. That's Wirecutter's #1 adult diapers brand. And she's got a little something to say about the diapers versus briefs debate.
I mean, ultimately, they are diapers. It's not, that's what they are. And while we have had one or two people offended by the use of that term on our socials, I think it's extremely limited. Our core customers haven't sent in messages saying, this really makes me feel devalued as a person.
Sure. Okay, so you have been the CEO of one of two adult diaper companies for the past 2 decades, correct?
That is correct.
Has it become a part of your identity?
Yeah, I jokingly sometimes call myself the diaper queen. It is a part of my identity, and I love it.
I've got to tell you, for being the CEO of Wirecutter's #1 adult diapers, there's very little to learn about you online. Is there anything people who buy your diapers should know about you specifically?
About me? Yeah, I don't know. I'm just very motivated to move this industry into the 21st century. Yeah, I don't know. Both my parents are disabled. They're both blind.
Oh.
So I grew up, seeing how disabled people are treated. So that makes me a little more passionate about what I'm doing. But also there's this element of, I was never seen growing up.
Wow. From never seen to the diaper queen. That's what I would say if this was a Queer Eye episode and I was Jonathan Van Ness. On the real, it is interesting to hear someone refer to the experience of not being seen as a kid as a positive.
It's weird, but there's some comfort sometimes in not being seen. You have a little more freedom to do what you want to do. And I don't really want to take credit for a lot of things personally. I mean, I have a great team of people here that do the work and help the brand. I just want the focus to be on the goal of what we're going without me distracting from that.
I guess the theory is the product can speak for itself. But how does the product compare to, say, the rest of the diapers on Wirecutter's list?
I barely look at what other people are doing except to see what they're not doing. And then I'm running on my own track. I don't even consider that as real competition, because what we're doing is exceptionally better than what anybody else is doing.
You mentioned bringing your industry into the 21st century. How is what you're doing exceptionally better than the competitors? And how do you think your industry is stuck in the past?
It's been dominated by large corporations for a long time. And those brands, they have shareholders and they're like, minimum input, maximum profit. Nobody cares what the end user thinks. Here in Canada, the standard of care is changing every 2 hours, which doesn't provide a lot of dignity for the patient. And also with many staffing conditions, people are often left for much longer in the products before they're actually changed. So we've designed a product that can be changed once per shift. It helps with staffing things, but also provides a much higher standard of dignity for the patient. They can sleep through the night.
Oh, this is a Canadian company. I guess that explains their caring about the customer over shareholders and not taking credit for the work your employees do. Kind of sounds like socialism, if you ask me. All jokes aside, it does seem like In Control Diapers is at least thinking about some of the issues that Nancy and Jonas raised. But I wondered if there was any other secret to how Laurie attempts to walk a mile in her customers' underpants. You spend a lot of time thinking about your products, developing your products. Do you wear diapers yourself?
I have worn them. I don't have a medical need for them, but I've tested all the products that we've brought to market myself because, I mean, you can get a lot of customer feedback, but there's nothing like knowing how your product works.
And by testing them, do you mean wearing them or do you mean going to the bathroom in them?
Yeah, like wearing them and using them. Like when we're testing that core for odor elimination, you have to have some soiled products sitting around and, give it the sniff test every few days just to see how well it's working.
Have you ever had a bowel movement in one of your products as part of the job?
No, I have not.
Okay, but as the CEO of a diaper company, you are using your products on the job or in the office?
Testing is at home. I mean, I've worn at work, but I don't think I've ever used a product at work.
Do you think that would be inappropriate?
I don't think that would be inappropriate, no.
Okay, you just bring your work home sometimes. Got it. Okay, I guess preparing for this, I wasn't thinking that part of your responsibilities are going to the bathroom.
Well, I mean, they're not technically part of my responsibilities, but
using your product, which in this case is peeing in a diaper, helps you be better at your job.
Yeah, I think you have to understand, like, a lot of people, like, mentally, it's hard to even get to that point when they need it. What is that experience for people? And I think that's something a lot of brands don't take into consideration, is that mental jump to being in a diaper, pull-up, tab brief, whatever it is.
Okay, so we've spent a little time with a CEO who's willing to soil a diaper and smell her own pee to make the customer experience better. Personally, if I was in the market, I would want a CEO who has gone all the way and had a bowel movement in their product. But in the interim, I think Laurie's off to a good start. It seems like she's thought a lot about this tension that we keep getting back to. The mental block of getting used to wearing diapers as an adult. I think it's smart and maybe healthy to think about what that might be like before it actually happens to you. We've already talked about this a little bit, but you use the term briefs and coveralls so that you don't infantilize the residents. But there's really no getting around the fact that they are forfeiting control of some of their most personal human acts. Have you thought about how that might feel?
It's really difficult to understand the resident experience without living in it a little bit. Mm-hmm. I think what you're bringing to my attention for me is this real struggle of holding on to the mission that launched me from starting a fucking alcoholic beverage company to working in elder care. And in many ways that has been the last few years, a bit of the wave you were talking about earlier of recognizing the numbness. It's just been this turned off sensory experience to try to create a change, to be in a situation that feels dignified enough, loving enough, human enough, real enough, where I could turn the sensory experience back on.
Hmm. So you got into this field because of your grandmother. What are your hopes and dreams for the industry by the time your parents are the age when they need part or full-time caregiving?
Aging in place has been thought of as the gold standard where you're able to stay at home and have perhaps a home health aide or a family member assist you with your ADLs. And the new term is aging in community, because there was a recognition that the term aging in place didn't include the social elements, and that there's this massive epidemic of isolation. My parents have friends that they love. They both have really great friends. And my hope for them as they age is to be able to do so in community. I think that it would look really different depending on where people live. But yeah, I'd love to see my parents living with their homies and being happy. The question now becomes how to implement the change, to show this model to the world, and to also get people to understand that a nursing home that looks like a home is better than the one that looks like a hospital. And that takes a whole cultural unlearning to realize how much of medicine is love and living, and that long-term care looks different than your standard medicine, that a procedure for a broken leg looks really different than for just happiness, that sometimes having a cart of watermelon instead of a cart of medicine, these med carts, some people just need watermelon and a hug,
We begin our lives donning diapers out in the open. But as we grow older, we start to cover them up. I wonder if we're doing that with aging and our aging populations. When we hide aging, adult diapers, and incontinence, we might think we're protecting ourselves. I'm not so sure who it is we're protecting in the long run. The person that I talked to, who's actually facing these issues, she wonders about the same things. I wanted to know what Nancy, in her 91 years, had learned about hiding the uncomfortable. Why do you think there is something in us that is kind of averting us from talking about this topic?
Well, I think it begins back with Mommy and Daddy handling it when you were little. If Mommy and Daddy didn't make very much out of it, I think you're not going to make very much. The other side of it is, I know when I first got my period, I got it at school. I guess I was junior high school. I don't remember. My dad didn't even know it was there. But my mom, she didn't handle it well at all. And I came home, and I was very excited. And I announced it at the dinner table. And I got sent away from the table.
They sent you away?
Not they, he.
Your dad did. So that pretty early on put in your mind that those things were private?
But I didn't necessarily follow along with it. But
you disagreed?
Yeah, but I didn't disagree by screaming and hollering and yelling. I thought, okay, there must be some reason why everybody's disagreeing about this,
And have you found that reason?
No. I don't know that there is an exacting reason.
It's just kind of something we all accept.
Right. And I don't know why people didn't tell you this beforehand. What the hell's the big deal? Tell me.
Okay, confession time. There were a lot of factors in reaching out to In Control Diapers, but the real reason I reached out to them is because of their social media presence. It was just really not what I was expecting. I had been thinking of the target audience for adult diapers as people who were 65 and older, but In Control's social media is filled with current trends, memes, and models wearing their diapers that looked like they could be about my age. But also a real clear dedication to reducing the stigma of wearing adult diapers, which is something I could really relate to. Do you have specific goals or strategies you're trying to accomplish as a brand with social media?
Yeah, everything we do is about reducing stigma and having some fun.
I've noticed you use a lot of memes and trends, and you have maybe younger models for your products than some of the other companies. Are you actively trying to reach younger audiences?
I wouldn't say we're actively trying to do that. I think social media in general, a lot of the content is, we know it's younger people. So, in the beginning, I thought like maybe we shouldn't put too much humor in it. It's kind of a fine line. But I think most people who deal with heavy things in their life, humor is a very healthy way of coming to terms with that and managing that ongoing.
You guys used the song Not Like Us by Kendrick Lamar in one of your Instagram reels. Are you familiar with that song?
Yeah, there was a bit of pushback on that one.
What was the pushback that you faced?
So there's a diaper community of people who wear for novelty purposes. The term's ABDL.
Which stands for?
Adult Baby Diaper Lover. A lot of those people have been accused of, inappropriate things, which is completely inaccurate and untrue. But
the pushback to the Not Like Us reel was that it was a diss to the ABDL community?
Yeah.
Interesting. Because the song insinuates that Drake is a pedophile.
Yeah.
All right. A lot to unpack here. If you've been living under a rock or maybe listened to this podcast because you're friends with my parents, this year, two of the biggest rappers in the world, Kendrick Lamar and Drake, who's Canadian, got tangled in a public feud where they each wrote and released multiple diss tracks about each other, culminating in Kendrick Lamar's Not Like Us, which became the biggest song in the country, breaking Billboard records. In that song, Kendrick, in many different ways, calls Drake a pedophile. Because of the song's popularity, In Control Diapers released a video with the chorus of that song playing over their models in diapers. I was not asking about any controversy when I brought up the song. I took the video in the way that I think they intended it, which was to say, other diaper companies are not like them, as in, they're worse. But apparently, there is a community called Adult Baby Diaper Lovers. In this community, for a number of reasons, the people either wear diapers or act like babies or both. And if you want to learn more about them, tune in next week. Okay, you're caught up. How did you deal with that as a brand?
Well, the person who was managing the socials at that time became defensive in their responses instead of being sympathetic. So that person's no longer with us.
Oh, wow. Who knew that Kendrick Drake beef touched the adult diaper community in such a controversial way?
I can understand that that's definitely, a trigger thing for that community.
Sure.
There is a reference in that song that is quite toxic.
That voice is Kat Marie, or Mommy Kat, as she calls herself. Kat is a member of the ABDL community, both in her personal life and professionally. And sometimes she serves as a model for In Control Diapers. That really left her at a crossroads in this controversy, but it also makes her a great person to help explain what went down.
It was an oversight to use a song that had a pedophilia reference. And never in a million years would anyone intentionally want that associated with our world, because it's actually quite the opposite of what we're doing here. We are grown adults first. And
that topic or that association is so toxic that even that song being played over people wearing diapers can get people defensive, it seems like, right?
And understandably.
So you're of the mindset of you're an adult diapers company, you've got to be aware of some of your clientele and what they might think if you're bringing that touchy of a subject forward.
Absolutely. I think it was an unfortunate oversight. Mistakes are made, but it was owned up to. And yeah, it's just unfortunate all around for, the click of a button to have started such an online brush fire.
In Control wasn't trying to start something with this video. Sometimes things are just stumbled upon. Speaking of which, I do want to tell you the actual, much stupider reason that I was bringing up this video in the first place. I was actually just bringing up that post because you're a Canadian company and is In Control co-signing Kendrick in the Kendrick Drake feud?
No, I don't ever see that in the future of the company.
You're still claiming your Canadian roots.
Yeah.
Okay. So now you know how Kendrick Lamar shook up the world of adult diapers. But you also know the world of adult diapers is bigger than I thought it was. And so, next week we keep exploring. Laurie's back, Kat's back, and they have insight to share. That and more next week. Someone's in Here was created, edited, and produced by me, Ben Castleman. Thank you to Jonas Weitzman for inviting me into your world. I could not have done this episode without you. Thank you to Nancy, Laurie Borowski, and Kat Marie. This episode contains original music composed by Gabe Grand. Our cover art is by Yeji Kim. The theme song, which you are listening to now, is by Alex and Matt Schumann. Editorial help from Jacob Sherman, Elise Samuels, and Alec Joyner. Special thanks to Jacob Hayes and Molly Levitt. Please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps independent podcasts like this one find a bigger audience. Reach out on Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube at someone'sinhere_podcast or at someone'sinhere.pod@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening. I'll talk to you again next week.